So this is an exciting week. Lots of fun stuff planned. I watched a few movies, one of which I'll be talking about today. And then following this, probably in the next day or so, maybe 2 days, I'll have a conversation with the filmmaker, writer, director, and lead actor of this project on the channel also. So stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, let's stop wasting time. Let's talk about Monsters Within. Let's do it. Sometimes with these movies that are from smaller houses, that are more independently made, you can't always tell the kind of project you're going to get, even with a trailer. You can get a sense of it, but it's going to be, sometimes it's hit or miss, frankly. So this film, I caught wind of on a whim, as usual. Sometimes things come to my email, sometimes I catch things on television, and I discovered this film and wanted to actually talk about it. When I started doing more research about it, I learned it's got a lot of buzz on the festival circuit. It's getting a lot of awards, a lot of attention is being given to this movie. And so I figured, let me take a gander and see what I think about it. Having seen the film, I can say it's a heartfelt examination. Really, at the heart of it is about a brother and sister. That's sort of the core of the film for me. And as a big brother myself, it spoke to me. Technical things came aside. What I was left with was more emotional, and I really dug it. I dug the film for that reason. So this is a film about a guy named Luke Wolf, who is a war veteran. He's coming back home to a small town. It's not the best place. It's probably the last place he wanted to be. It's a rundown. It's not a cool place, but it is home. And so Luke's returning home after his time in the military, and we discover that Luke is battling some hard internal emotions and things. He's angry all the time. He's got a cloud over him. And then he meets this woman, Lily, who also is dealing with some heavy stuff. And somewhere in the middle, they come together. And obviously there's some conflict outside of them that they then have to contend with. But that stuff almost feels secondary. It's really about Luke and his love for his sister, Elle. Elle is a character who is not in the film a lot, but her presence is felt. She is a special needs sibling. She has Down syndrome. And Luke is carrying her in a lot of different ways with him. The story itself is quite is affecting, because on the surface it seems like this guy he's a lone wolf out of the military. Trouble's following him. Trouble's always following him. It seems like he can't seem to get out of his own way. These are things we've seen before. And you also see that same lone wolf run into a woman, pick your place, at a club, at a bar, on the street somewhere, whatever, who's also had a hard life. Somehow these two come together and they complete each other and stuff. And so you're not going to get anything fresh in that area in this movie, but what you will get that's fresh is the feeling, the depth of feeling in the sibling department. Thankfully, the landscape, I think, in media is changing, where other relationships outside of the romantic ones are being treated as just as important. The sister in this movie doesn't appear a lot, but her presence is so strongly felt, and it's something that really hit me. There's a wonderful monologue in the middle of this film, which I think really is the heart of the movie, the centerpiece. You have Luke sitting in front of a fire at night. And the symbolism of that, to me anyway, in a movie that's called The Monsters Within, this person is sitting in a fire, around a fire, with darkness all around him. And this light is keeping the monsters away. It's a beautiful setup, just visually and symbolically, when you can understand the different things Luke is holding. He's holding a lot of stuff. Presumably, we don't see any of this, but presumably he's dealt with some trauma from his military experience. He's dealing with anger. We learn he's dealing with, some grief. He's dealing with, in a lot of forms of it, a lot of forms of grief. He's dealing with some depression, possibly, some sadness. There's a lot of stuff going on with this guy. And this fire at night is this light. That's the one light he can sort of sit with. And what's really cool about that is that, to me, the sister is the light for him. She represented that for him. And the fact that in a moment you can kind of call the sister, call the spirit, call that essence, carry her with you wherever you're out. Like the fire is a good sort of symbol for the light that she held in his life. And I thought that was really cool, and it really was poignant. It really hit something emotionally. From a technical perspective, writing-wise, the monologue was it might have been a little bit too long, and that's just my writer brain going, there's probably a tighter way to convey all of this. But at the same time, it has a lot of work to do. That monologue has to give us story stuff. It has to give us information about Luke, other information about him that we didn't already know. It has to convey character stuff about Elle, his sister, and why she's so important. And by the end of it, you understand, you can make a case for the fact that, wow, this guy's going off the rails all the time throughout this whole movie. What's going on? Oh, his military experience. He had a rough time in the military. He just needs to go to therapy. He needs to figure it out. But once you learn about his sister, everything makes sense. Like, everything clicks when you understand how important she is to him. Put a lot of things into perspective for me. Devin Montgomery is wearing a lot of hats. He's a producer, he's lead actor, he wrote the script, and he's directing this film. He does a good job directing the project. Like, his hand is very steady. You can see that there's a consistent vision, and there's a clarity with how that vision is communicated. Did a really good job. He has been nominated and or has won Best Actor awards at several festivals. He did a very good job portraying the different, shards. I call it shards of Luke. Luke is broken. And there's different shards of the sort of metaphorical glass of Luke that have to be on display. And I think as an actor, he has to really put himself in a mental state to convincingly portray that, and I think he does a good job. Kendall Cavner is Montgomery's opposite in this movie. She plays Lily, the woman Luke ends up falling for, and her performance is very sound. She's particularly good in the last act. You really feel the electricity in her performance in the last act. She does a really good job. The third anchor of this movie is Samuel French. Now, I've just been learning about Samuel French. I didn't realize he had been around as much as he had. He'd done a lot of stuff. He was just in Killers of the Flower Moon and several other projects. The minute he comes on screen, he gives the proceedings like a real boost of juice. Like, there's some real juice that this guy brings. He's not around long, but his presence is felt. You remember him. He does so much with so little space that it actually feels like a much more expansive performance than either Luke or Lily. And each of them come to the table with their own backstories and their own histories and stuff. But for Cyrus, who French plays in this movie, he feels so much more grand without the effort. It doesn't feel like he's overextending himself in the role. There's real life, I think, that he brings to proceedings. I just learned French passed away a few months ago, and but he also is another one who's been getting not just rave reviews for his performance, but he's won some awards for his performance in this movie, and definitely deservedly so. He was very good in this movie, and it's a shame that I think he wasn't around as long. If the movie was a little bit longer, I would have loved to see a little bit more of Cyrus. He was such a fun and lively character. It really woke you up. If you watch this movie and you feel like you're losing interest, when Cyrus hits the scene, you'll wake up. From the technical side, this movie had really strong cinematography. There was really cool camera angles and just really artsy shots that felt more than just, they weren't there for the sake of being there. They were unique shots that felt like you could have had them, things that are slightly out of focus or slightly in focus. The colors were vivid, and I think there was a color motif that was really cool, that was captured really nicely. There was a red and blue color motif, and I don't know. I'm sure there was a meaning to that. I'm not quite sure what the colors meant. You can make a case for there's imagery that make references to patriotism. United States. There's American flags. There's red, white, and blue, and so there's red and blue lights in different places. This to me also suggested or implied something about Luke's character, the idea that the red and blueness of like the good and bad, or the light and dark sides of himself that he's sort of battling with throughout this movie, and how it was captured, how some of the shots really emphasized the isolation of Luke, the parts where he's kind of like, he's a loner a little bit for huge chunks of this movie, and the way the film's shot reflects that, and the way it's lit reflects that. Another thing I really liked about this movie was the music. There were some really cool songs on display. I can't remember the actor's name, but this actor was singing one of the songs in one of the bar sequences, and he was a performer. He was an actor in this movie as well. He plays someone from Luke's past. Not a particularly nice guy, but he's got a great voice, and he performed a great song. There's another good song in the film, but I also found, just as an aside, the background, the ambient music was cool too. If you listened, which I feel like you pay attention to it more often with movies like this, meaning smaller movies, independent movies, where things feel like, depending on how you watch it and how you watch it, you can catch the spaces in between stuff, the spaces in between a cut, the spaces in between certain lines of dialogue, where the ambient sound in the background might be a little bit too noticeable or whatever. It depends on who you are. As someone who edits videos and who's made short films and stuff, I think my ear and my sort of processing of how I see certain things is affected by that. So it hits me in certain ways. I can catch the spaces maybe weren't meant to be caught. Maybe most people wouldn't catch it because you're so focused on like the conversations that's in front of you or whatever it is. But and I say that because in those spaces in between the lines of dialogue, for instance, there's a scene where Luke and Lily are having a conversation at the bar, and there's ambient music playing in the background, and it's on a loop. I don't think it's meant to really be thought of from, as an audience person. But if you're someone who is open to that kind of thing, and you pick up on different melodies and musicals type of stuff, that stuff's going to hit you like it hit me. And I found myself going, wow, it almost was hypnotic, the ambient music. And I found myself going, I like this stuff. This is cool. Just keep this playing. Just don't change it. It never changed, and for the whole conversation. And I think it changed once. There was two ambient songs that were in there, and I liked them. I thought they were cool. So there was cool musical things going on in the movie. And then also separately, in the last third of the film, like the last act, the music, the score of the film, it changes. there's something about it that it feels grander. I don't know. And I have to ask him about this. But the music, particularly at the end, was really grand. It felt like it was, and it was increasing. It was building on the intensity of when things are coming to a head. The music reflects that, and I don't know if it's stock music, or if they actually got people to compose the music for that. I have to look into that, but that was even cool. I appreciate that. Aside from that, there were, I think, a couple slight audio issues. I think that came up for me during my viewing. So certain sections where lines of dialogue were delivered were either too low or too muffled, or too affected, where there might have been some effect added or whatever, where I couldn't understand it. But aside from that, it was fine. It wasn't like a major deal breaker, but it was something that I noticed that, and I had a pretty decent sound system connected while I was watching this movie, and so I could hear things pretty well. But for certain aspects of it, didn't come clear to me. The other thing is, for maybe the first, I think, third or first half of the film, the caliber, the level of acting felt like it had and maybe that was intentional. I feel like now that I'm thinking more about it, there's something about the acting that felt like it had hit a ceiling, and at a certain point, after the halfway point, it broke the ceiling. I can't tell whether or not that was the result of how the film was edited, or whether or not it was written like that, or what. But that was another observation I had. This was a unique watch. It's not something that I'd seen before. I haven't seen a film quite like this, and I liked I'm a huge fan of the story. I really appreciated the brother and sister connection and the importance of that, like the reverence that this film pays that relationship, which, by the way, is extra special because Luke's sister in this movie, is also Daniela Montgomery, who I believe is Devin Montgomery's sister in real life. So that's cool. That's an extra thing that's cool. Having done silly projects with my sister, worked on little films and stuff, and worked on her short films when she had film classes and stuff, being a part of her film projects, that's extra cool to me. Like I feel like I have an extra layer of kinship with the story, and I can relate to Luke in grappling with some of the more the harder aspects of like life stuff, especially life is is great, but also life can be kind of hard. So you have moments where you're dealing with sadness and grief because you had some people die, or different things, crazy stuff with work, or whatever it is going on in your life. Those things are very real and universal. It just, I don't know, hit me in a certain way. So I would recommend this movie, this award-winning movie. Got to mention that because, again, I mentioned at the start of this video, it's been getting a lot of buzz on the festival circuits, won quite a bit of awards, and I definitely think it's worth a watch. If for nothing else, the sound acting on display, Samuel French is a standout, and the cinematography is very good, so super effective. So that's all I have to say about this movie. Thanks for hanging out and for listening to me talk about this film. Come on back, more reviews coming. Also stay tuned. Again, the interview with Devin Montgomery is coming up pretty soon. I'll be ready for that. All right, I'm out of here. In the meantime, please take it easy, take care, and I'll see you in the next video.